Oh, hey. Hi there. Welcome to Strikes Are Fancy. Come on, sit down for a minute, won't you? Normally, this is the show where myself and my two co-hosts, Caleb and Rob, chat about whatever we feel like on a given week. But this week, life got in the way a little bit. With some illness and some travel, and it's, summer, and timing, and jobs, and oh boy, so much other things going on. It's just me. It's just Craig this week. And so I thought maybe I would just blather on a little bit about what's striking my fancy today. And if it turns into anything coherent, maybe you'll end up hearing it. And so I have been sitting here over the past couple days as I've been doing my work and as I've been getting things done around the house and talking to people and kind of spitballing with Carrie about what could I talk about this week or what should I talk about this week. It just kind of occurred to me as I was sitting here staring at the microphone and a blank slate of audio in front of me. I thought it might be interesting just to kind of talk about the nature of loneliness. Not that I am particularly lonely in this moment, but I don't know. I think it's something that we don't necessarily talk about enough. I think we all have our perception on what loneliness looks like and what it feels like, but it's all skewed on what we as an individual feel and what we go through. And I don't know that that necessarily translates or is an equivalent to give to the rest of the world, to the rest of the population, to the rest of the people around us. And we all think maybe that loneliness looks the same, but maybe it doesn't. And so, I don't know. I'm maybe just going to share my thoughts a little bit and see if it resonates with anybody. I should preface, I am not lonely in the moment. I just thought it might be funny to talk about loneliness while I'm sitting here in a room by myself, literally talking to myself. But there have been times in my life where I have felt lonely. I think we all do. Again, that's my assumption. I think we all do, but I don't actually know that. What I have always assumed is healthy, normal, part of the expectation of living life is that we will go through periods of time where we feel like maybe no one gets us, no one understands. We're putting in more effort into the relationships around us than maybe we're getting. Maybe this is something I have gone through specifically is maybe in crucial moments, something in my life in particular has been getting me down, or there's something that's really kind of dragging on me. I want someone to reach out, but I don't necessarily know how to ask for it. I just assume that if someone is part of my life, they would know that I'm going through something difficult and they would reach out. But that is, in hindsight, I have realized that is incredibly unfair to ask of anyone. It doesn't make sense that I can hide what I'm going through and still expect someone else to understand or even realize it's happening, and then expect them to reach out, which is difficult in its own right. I think some of the conversations that I've had with other people about their loneliness, their depression, and what it feels like for them, there are obviously common through lines. I mean, these words exist for a reason. Isolation, loneliness, melancholy. These are unifiers for all of us. But at the same time, it's so hard to remember that other people care when you're in that headspace, I think. I'm going to put that on myself. I think it is hard to remember that there other people exist and care when I'm in that headspace, that I'm so wrapped up in myself and what I've got going on that I forget that other people have their own lives and have their own dreams, desires, frustrations, angers, and they're the main character of their own stories. And it's tough. It's tough to think that there isn't going to be someone that just swoops in at the right moment and helps lift you out. That you either have to get through it or you have to ask for the help. No one's going to just be there in the moment always when you need them. But I think that ties into a bigger idea of we live in this world where we're more connected than we've ever been before, which is not a remarkable thing to say. Everybody knows that. But just with the advent of the internet, technology, phones, computers, anyone in the world is essentially a message away or a phone call away. And yet somehow that makes it harder, I think, to ask for help sometimes. I feel, or I have been in a position before where I know I could send a message to someone and they would respond. They would be there for me. They would they would be a phone call that I could have and hash some stuff out with. But just even, it's almost because the technology has made things so seamless, that barrier to starting the conversation is almost harder. I don't know would it be easier to hide, or would it be harder to ask for help if you only saw your friend once a week or once a month and it was arduous to go see them? You know, if you had to travel hours upon hours and to go see someone that you know and care about and you know cares about you, someone you could open up to, would you be more inclined to talk about serious shit, or would you be more inclined to hold that time as precious and try to ignore the problem? Geez, that's a question I can't answer. I know what I've done in the past. I think I think I'm much more comfortable talking to people I talk to regularly about things, about innocuous things. I'm much more comfortable talking to them about deep things because I know we will have the time and the inclination and the availability to have a serious conversation, but then also things will go back to normal versus, I don't know, sometimes I think there's an element of once you've started talking to someone about something serious, that's all you're going to talk about for weeks or for as long as the problem exists. I don't know. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's a me thing. But sometimes I think that might be a reason that I don't open up potentially, is because I worry that that's going to be the singular defining characteristic of the relationship moving forward. And that's not fair. I don't want to put that on anyone. Jeez. But does that mean, am I claiming to have too much weight in the situation? if I'm like, I've derailed our entire relationship, it's all going to be about me now. Which I hope has never been my goal, conscious or subconscious. Oof, that makes me sound like an egotistical piece of shit. But yeah, there's comfort in casualness that I think makes things a little easier for me to talk about maybe how I'm doing, where I'm at. Yeah. I also think loneliness can be a healthy thing. Carrie has brought up to me many, many times. She says, Craig, you are constantly distracted. You constantly have an audiobook going, some music playing, a video going, listening to the radio. Like there's always buzz. There's always chatter in my life, even as I'm doing other things. And there's very few times in my schedule or in my life or in my day-to-day that I'm not consuming something. And that's something that I've been trying to get better about, to really be mindful and really spend time thinking about, where am I at? What do I want? How am I feeling? And these are things I spoke to a counselor about years ago during COVID, when I think there was a massive increase of people seeking therapy during COVID. I was one of those people. And that was some great advice that my counselor gave, was like, hey, make sure you set aside time to really look inward. But it's so easy to not do that these days. It's so easy to be distracted by what's going on around. And it's hard and it's uncomfortable to look inward. And maybe that's part of why being lonely is so difficult, is because we're just stuck with ourselves and we have nothing else to do but look inward. And I'm not happy with what's in here. I don't expect anyone else to be doing that nonstop. And so to do that to myself seems like a little torturous. But that's how we grow. If we can't acknowledge what's wrong with ourselves and our own issues, and then I shouldn't even say what's wrong with ourselves. If we can't acknowledge with what we perceive is wrong with ourselves, and we can't acknowledge the flaws that we can see in ourselves, we'll never grow. We'll stagnate and we'll keep doing the same shit day after day. And that's not good either. I don't want to be that person, but man, it's tough. And I think sometimes that's why I want to just open the doors to conversations like this. I don't know that I have a coherent message or idea or point to get across, which is very uncomfortable for me in this setting. I am always trying to push an agenda in my conversations. But in this case, I think it's the opposite. I think I just kind of wanted to open up a little bit and just normalize talking about loneliness, because, oh boy, like I have a lot of people in my life. I have a lot of people that I trust and depend on and can count on, but it's still really hard to be vulnerable and open to the people that I even trust. especially around loneliness. Because who wants to be the one to say like, hey, like I want to be around someone, or I want someone to just listen to me. I'm not looking for advice. I'm not looking for help. Just want someone to count on. And that's damn hard to do. And I think we should all be a little more forgiving of ourselves and give us the grace to do that. And hopefully, and this is maybe a note towards myself, but give that grace to others and really respect and understand and treat the people around me. I'm going to try and treat the people around me with a little bit more of that understanding and hopefully be that person who can ask like, hey, how are things going in the moment? Because I know I've wanted that in the past, but timing's fucking everything and I'm the worst at it. So I don't plan to get any better at that, but I'll try. So I guess my takeaway to you sitting there listening to this is I hope you don't feel lonely, but if you do, that's okay. We all do. We all do sometimes. I do from time to time. And I hope there are people that are in your life that you can reach out to and you feel comfortable talking to and opening up about it. And don't be afraid to. Don't feel like a burden because you don't know what they're going through. And you don't know that maybe by being a little vulnerable, they'll feel more comfortable opening up to you. Yeah. So this is going to be a real short one this week. If you have any thoughts on loneliness or opening up or vulnerability, or something you just want to talk about, you can reach out to me at strikesarefancy@gmail.com or go down to the details and send me a little voice message if you're so inclined, or our TikTok or Instagram. But honestly, I'd really love to just hear people's thoughts about loneliness and maybe how if you're willing to share, how have you processed and dealt with loneliness in the past? Because yeah, if we don't share, if we don't talk about it, it's just going to keep isolating us. So I'll reiterate, this is not a cry for help. This is just Craig's musings on loneliness. Thanks for listening. If you stuck it out, I hope this wasn't too melancholy. Hope this wasn't too much of a downer. I expect we'll be back to our normal format in a couple weeks. You can expect something from, I think, Rob, Caleb, and I again. We'll get back to a little bit of normal for a bit until we start doing some more weird stuff. But for now, I've been Craig. Thanks for listening, and have a good week.